Hello, welcome to the live stream. I just realized the light is not on. There we go. Hi folks, welcome. Thanks for bearing with us. I know there was no countdown music. Well, I didn't actually know until you told me because I can never hear it when it's counting down. But Aaron has redone my entire streaming system, and I appreciate all of the work that he's put into it, but he claims that it's been simplified, but it hasn't been simplified because everything has been moved and I got used to it the old way. Yeah, it absolutely is Aaron's fault. And we will continue to blame Aaron, who is not in this room, so he doesn't actually know that we're blaming him, but it's fine. Okay. So today we're going to talk about kind of like a cornucopia of fee-related things. We're going to talk a little bit about subscription fees and how we don't own anything anymore. We will talk a little bit about junk fees. This is all going to be tied into my buying running shoes journey, which I did talk about last week. And some people said that they gave me great suggestions. I don't think that was true. No one gave me great suggestions, but I didn't really expect the internet to give me suggestions on shoes because, frankly, I needed to get fit. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll also talk a little bit about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau because yesterday another judge said essentially all the people that got laid off in the reduction in force from the federal government at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the agency that is meant to protect us from things like junk fees and, greedy companies taking advantage of consumers, particularly banks. It was born out of the last recession and the banking crisis. We're going to talk about what that looks like. What does it look like with 1,400, 1,500 employees getting laid off, which was sort of back and forth whether or not it was going to happen. But yesterday they ruled that they could. Fuzzbubbles says, oh my God, those earrings. So this was one of my birthday gifts to myself. So I, at any given time, have like 40 different earrings in my Etsy cart. And I decided to go, I have essentially a different moth from this same seller in pink. And this seller, I can tell, is like not a full-on professional seller, at least on the internet, because they came wrapped in a paper towel inside of a Ziploc bag in just like a regular plain package with like a handwritten note on like a scrap of notebook paper. And I gotta say, it felt like old Etsy before half or more of the sellers on Etsy were like shipping from overseas, and it pretty much became Amazon. And they are fantastic. They're made out of clay, like hand molded clay, and very accurate to Luna Moss. So I love when Meteor X comes in as alternate ego selves. We don't have enough cat pictures of your babies, Meteor X. This is what I have to say. I know you're on your work computer, so this might not happen right now, but I'm just going to say, questions@ohmydollar.com. I continue to need floofs of the week. And in particular, you can just keep submitting your kitties, even though they're not even kittens anymore. My mom said, is that like when your dad updates the Wi-Fi and then takes a trip? Pretty much. I was not given very good notice that this was happening. I would if I watched Aaron's live streams, because I'm pretty sure Aaron talked about it and maybe even did it on his live stream, but I can't because I am at work when Aaron live streams. So we do have an amazing looking donut for today. And next week I will be streaming, but I'm going to be just back from Salt Lake City and about to head out on another trip. And so we'll have a Portland donut next week, but then the week after that, it's possible I'm going to stream from Baker City or Pendleton, Oregon, but I also might actually just do the stream on Wednesday night instead of Tuesday night. We will see, because I have a very packed schedule this work trip. Okay, so here is the donut. Look at this boy. Look at this. It is a blueberry coffee cake. So it's got like the coffee cake crumble on the top. And then it has vanilla pastry cream, 2 fresh blueberries. This is fresh blueberry glaze. And then it's like a full-on kind of filled cream donut there. It looks amazing. I am very excited to have it. You know, if Aaron fixes some of the things that are broken, then he's allowed to have it, but he's actually helping a friend with a different website right now. So probably doesn't get any taxes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Duo is done, isn't he? He got attacked by the cats. Let's put Duo properly back there. But he has also had enough of junk fees, too. An adjacent topic I was frustrated with today. How was my Netflix YouTube music plan billed through my cell phone bill, and why? I actually don't know the answer to this, and I want you to do some detective work for this. Probably because I don't subscribe. I only subscribe to like mobile resellers now, so I get mine through Mint Mobile, so I pay 6 months or a year for my internet service, and I have an eSIM. So, but I want to know more about this. So, one, is your phone bill, is it a combined cable bill? Is like, are you also subscribed to any cable services through it? Because that's the way it used to be. Then, separately, I want to understand, did you sign up for some sort of package deal that you were like aware of at the time that you did it? Was there a possibility? Because one thing that I ran into was when I signed up for my, when I got a new iPad. So I bought an iPad in 2021. My first ever iPad, still the same iPad. It's our television because we don't have a television. Not a very good television, just to be clear. When I got the iPad in 2021, they gave me like a year of Apple TV free premium. And then they were doing that for like any new Apple devices for a while. And that does seem to be like a premium perk that they get. But then they just decide that they're going to bill it anyway later. T-Mobile had a good deal for Netflix, so we got it through them starting last week. It's a perk of my cell phone plan. Okay, so I'm actually really curious. Like, what is the price that you're paying for each of these services compared to what you would pay for if you're a la carte? Is anybody in the position to check their like T-Mobile bill or AT&T or whatever? So I'm very curious about that. What's doing in Salt Lake? Oh my, I listened to too many bird talk videos. I don't know what is bird talk, like bird watchers. I don't know what that is. What am I doing in Salt Lake City? I'm there for work. But I am hoping to go skate. I am planning to bring my skates, even though I have like a pretty narrow window. Bike prom in Salt Lake City is also the night that I'm there, but it seems like I'm not going to have a bike with me, so I'd have to find a way to borrow it. And it doesn't look like they have bike share in Salt Lake, which would be like the easiest way to borrow a bike for a couple hours. I don't know how like gritty and punk the bike scene is in Salt Lake City. And it seems like this bike prom might be kind of like a fundraiser for a more mainstream bike organization. Because if it was like a gritty punk one, I would just show up and be like, hey, can someone carry me on their cargo bike? But I get the impression that might not be the way, like even if that bike scene does exist while I'm there. Anyway, I do have that night free theoretically, but the conference is at a hotel and I'm staying at the hotel. And because of that, I think and it starts fairly early on Sunday. So I think a lot of other people are going to be flying in on Saturday. And I suspect I'm probably going to have to do like work drinks or something like that. So I'm hoping that I could go out to the Olympic ice rink. So obviously the Olympics were hosted in Salt Lake City in 2002, and then they are going to be hosted again, I think 2038 in Salt Lake City. So, which sounds like really far away, but it's not actually that far away if you really think about it. But they have the Oval, but the Oval is like kind of hard to get to without a car outside of Salt Lake City because it's all like kind of spread out. It's in actually like an adjacent suburb, but it's like the speed skating ring and it looks so cool, but might not be worth bringing my skates to. Netflix Premium is $18.99, while from Netflix is currently $24.99. That's crazy. When I stopped paying for Netflix, it was like $12 a month. And it had gone up so much money. Although I wasn't paying for like full premium. I made sure that I was not paying for it says it's $17.99. Oh, premium is more devices. It's even higher than standard. Standard with ads, I was like, I'm not paying for Netflix with ads. But I feel like now, because I don't have Netflix, I essentially do get ads because the only streaming service I'm currently paying for, which I don't pay for monthly, I pay for annually, and I make a new email address during the Black Friday sales every year, is Peacock. And that is because NBC, the only thing I watch on it is figure skating, but NBC has a chokehold on the figure skating broadcast rights in the United States. And because of that, it is like you have to subscribe to Peacock. So I ended up getting it for like $20 for the year or something like that on the Black Friday ads. My phone broke and I had to replace it. I got a Galaxy S25 Ultra. Did you end up paying monthly or did you get it like flat rate? I just got a new phone actually today, but I didn't buy it. I inherited Aaron's old phone. So I'm now doing all the phone transition things. It's moving all the auth codes over that's hard now. Like Apple has made it extremely easy to transition phones now. I'm thinking about doing, I've heard it described as a crack phone and a kale phone, but I'm thinking about segmenting my my distraction versus my not distraction from the phone with the SIM card and not the phone with the SIM card. I did use the new phone as an excuse I'd already taken off TikTok and Red Note, and I ages ago, I think early in this administration, took off Blue Sky and Twitter. I think I took Twitter off my phone like 2 years ago. I now have removed Instagram. So it's really the last bastion of social media on my phone, and I have to use it on my desktop if I really want to. And it is a little annoying because posting is still like a thing I need to do. Like I post a thing letting people know about the live stream on Instagram. It is still like very useful for my job. I often have to search for things on Instagram, but frankly, I am just like done. I was wondering if the ad blocking actually works. I was very curious if the ad blocking actually works because I have found like one thing that was very frustrating is they blocked screenshotting on Netflix, and I wasn't screen recording to like pirate it. I was screen recording because I wanted to take screenshots of like various outfits or like interior design in Bridgerton. My status, Netflix is one of those things where like there's really no benefit to keeping it in a month that you're not using it because they let you just like toggle it on and off and they don't really grandfather you in. So my status is when they get a show that I really care about, I will pay for that month and I will watch the show and then I will unsubscribe. And it's been very valuable. I hate all these sites block screenshots now. You're blocking free promotion. I get that it's like a copyright situation, but it is very frustrating. We're paying monthly. There is a discount for 50% off per month on the phone payment. So I'm really curious, like how long is your contract for paying monthly, because I am starting to see these phone contracts where you buy the phone and you pay monthly, and it's like a 5-year contract. They like, cars are now turning into mortgages, and phones are now turning into cars as far as the payment, like, and financing plans for them. And it's starting to make me a little concerned. I love how I have like a plan of how we're going to talk about things, but we're already talking about subscriptions. People just have deep feelings. So, okay, one of the things that was really interesting that happened around legislation around junk fees last year in the US was Taylor Swift, of all things, because you suddenly had a bunch of Congress people who were holding themselves up as like, one, they were either outing themselves as Swifties. Most likely they were outing their staff that wrote their remarks that they were saying as Swifties. But they started trying to propose legislation that was going to crack down on these fees. So like a great example was like The Cure went on tour and they wanted to keep the prices really low. They wanted them to be like $20 a piece, which is kind of unheard of for like major band, multi-country tours anymore. So they wanted them to be $20. But since Ticketmaster and Live Nation have like a chokehold monopoly on the entire system, even with the $20 tickets, they were, they would have like a $10 facility fee and a $5 processing fee, and then a $6 like mobile ticket fee, which is like kind of crazy. They charge you a fee if you print out the ticket, and they charge you a fee if you pick up the ticket, and they charge you a fee if your ticket is on your phone. So there was all of this legislation, and one of the examples was like those Cure tickets that were supposed to be $20 were ending up being closer to $50, and majority of that was actually fees, like Ticketmaster fees. And so that was like the situation I was in when I was thinking about going to see Troye Sivan and Charlie XCX in Portland, and our tickets were like significantly cheaper. It was like a Tuesday night show, significantly cheaper here than they were in a lot of other cities. My big issue is that I didn't want to stay up late. But those tickets were only like $39. And I was like, yeah, I'm willing to do that. And then when you go to check out, it ends up being like $85. So it was like doubling the price of the tickets. And that started the Taylor Swift's like massive amount of influence that she had last summer when she was like the woman of the freaking year, and in combination with Beyonce. But I do think what moved it a little bit more was Taylor Swift. And that was, I think, because she was just so like, her fans are so vocal in a way that Beyonce fans, one, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of fans of both Taylor Swift and Beyonce. I mean, who isn't a Beyonce fan? But the Taylor Swift fans are very organized, and they, because of racism, they have a perception as being like younger and more approachable than someone that would identify as a super Beyonce fan, right? Because of like racism, adultification, you have this idea that like Taylor Swift fans in our heads are all 13-year-old girls. That isn't actually true anymore. Like the majority of Taylor Swift fans are like slightly younger than me. They're in their 30s. They have kids of their own. They might have high schoolers or even like adult children of their own at this point. And, they have purchasing power and political organizing power. And they're also usually digital natives, right? And because of that, but they have, among older white male lawmakers, there is this perception that like, oh, doing what the Taylor Swift fans are asking for is like a cute, fuzzy sort of thing that one can do. So the combination of the two, like, Beyonce is corporate. Her husband owns a venue. I mean, Taylor Swift is also corporate. There's no distinction between either of these billionaire women as far as their like reputations. Like Taylor Swift is one of the richest women in the world, and like loves money, and but also like openly talks about money and rights and everything with her like Taylor's version and the auction of her masters in a way that has not been typical other than Dolly Parton, I would say. And we haven't really seen it since Prince and his fight for his own name. So anyway, we're getting off track here. I'm not a music historian. What was interesting is we started to see this push. We started to see this legislation of like the price has to be shown with the final price included, and this attack on junk fees. So this also includes resort fees, which are a thing I have been scammed by so many times. And a lot of times those fees are something that's implemented by the jurisdiction, the local jurisdiction, right? Taxes on travelers, on tourists, are always like politically a huge win in most places because people that are visiting don't vote. Like tourists can't vote in your local election. And so often it's a way to raise way to raise money. So resort fees are extremely common in Las Vegas. They're extremely common in New York City, in hotels. And I have had multiple times where I have stayed at cheap hotels in New York City that are not high. They are not resorts by any means, but they get charged a resort fee. And it has something to do with like, there's a pool, or, you know, it's just like how the star system for hotels actually just has to do with how many amenities they have and not necessarily how nice the hotel is. Well, the resort fees were one of those cases where I stayed at like a $50 a night hotel in New York City, which was like, that's crazy cheap for New York City. So you can imagine how nice of a hotel it was. But then I had like a $30 a night resort fee tacked on top. So what is interesting is all of this proposed legislation around junk fees that came out was essentially under the idea that they would implement transparency. So some of these would be outright banned, but at the very least, you should be able to shop without having all of those fees tacked on at the end. So the idea was like, if a hotel's price is blah, 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 it would have to include the resort fee and all of those other charges that you would have. If a concert ticket is $50, then it has to stay $50 when you check out and doesn't need to have like 10 other fees attached to it. It made some progress in Congress. So it was sponsored by Senator Blumenthal, who is a Democrat from Connecticut. But it was fairly bipartisan when it started in the Commerce, Science, and Transportation bill. It got referred over to a House bill, and they tried to merge them, and it stalled out. So they brought it up in 2023. They made a new version of it last year. And now what has essentially happened, because they can't do anything in Congress these days, and we have switched to a much more business-friendly administration and Congress right now. What they ended up doing is now Democratic states are sponsoring these. So Oregon has like a no junk fees act. It also didn't get approved, I'm just going to say, because once again, it stalled out because our freaking legislature failed at a bunch of their priorities this session, and they're getting called back in for a special session. And then so legislature didn't make any progress on this. Then at the end of last year, the Federal Trade Commission made a bipartisan rule. So the Federal Trade Commission, which is, you know, some of it is appointed and some of them are public servants, if we have any of those left, they made a junk fees rule that prohibited what they called bait and switch pricing. And the whole idea was that it was going to regulate live event ticketing and short-term lodging industries. So this was going to go after those Airbnbs that end up having a resort fee, a cleaning fee, a blah, 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 blah fee. And it was going to go after live event ticketing and hotels that have these resort fees onto it. The whole idea was that this FTC fee, they did it while Biden was lame duck president, with the idea that, like, we've been working on this, we've been collecting public input on it, we're going to put this forward because it doesn't need to go through the legislature if it comes from the Federal Trade Commission. The problem is that there is now no enforcement mechanism. So the Federal Trade Commission has stalled out on a lot of the work that they were previously doing. And then additionally, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is one of the mechanisms that United States consumers have to file complaints about companies and deceptive practices if they don't file it to the FTC. And essentially, those are understaffed. They've just had massive reductions of force. So theoretically, this rule is still in place. The question is, what is this? How is this actually going to work? Resort fees are so bad because they happen after booking and at check-in when you're at the point of no refunds. I know, that's what's so frustrating. Like, I've actually had them happen at check-out. Like, I had to pay a resort fee at the end of a 5-day stay. And I was like, cool. What did I miss? Did she eat a donut yet? No, we're all just talking about subscription fees. Okay, I want to find out more about the cell phone. Example from my Verizon bill. Disney Plus is included on a line that is $9 more than the next lower plan, but that line also gets stuff like more hotspot and international data. Disney Plus is $15.99 for no ads version. All I'm going to say is that we have replaced cable. Because cable bills used to be one of the most confusing things, and you'd have to, like, buy this package, and it would have, like, bazillion other channels in it that you didn't want, but you needed to get ESPN, so then you got all this other dumb stuff that you didn't want, or you, like, wanted the Sci-Fi channel, but then you had to get 47 other channels, and then you'd end up with, like, all of these different rider packages, and it became very confusing to figure out, like, what your cable packages were, and you'd get upsold and bundled and blah, 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 blah. And you know, oh, and it would come with 10 cents a minute long distance or whatever bundled in with that. And we have done that. Everybody was cutting cable, and we had gotten to the point where people were, you know, paying $8.99 to get DVDs to show up to their door and didn't have cable anymore. And then they found a way to bring us back to cable. They found a way to bring us back to just as confusing of a situation that we had before. The only upside is there is no longer to steal your streaming services. You just need to be able to have access to a VPN and someone else's password. Instead of to steal cable, you have to, like, run cables through the closet from your upstairs neighbor, which is illegal. Both of those things are illegal, but one of them feels a little less illegal. My mom asks how else I'll get your Capyberry videos. Okay, what I'll also say is that I don't actually check TikTok. Even when I did have TikTok on my phone, I didn't check TikTok that often. So I essentially just got all of your Capybara videos like a month later. So the issue I see is I can't get those other things without also losing the things I want. One park is Apple Arcade, which is getting discontinued and replaced with nothing. What is Apple Arcade? I don't know what that is. I guess it doesn't exist anymore. Isn't the App Store Apple Arcade? I feel like 1 to 2 years is pretty normal for payments. Yeah, I'm starting to see more and more extended ones, which I think has a lot to do with targeting lower income consumers, right? So the longer you can drag those payments out. The other thing too is that they'll just, like, convince you to roll it into a new payment. It's just like a buy here, pay later car lot, right? So, which have, like, very high rates of repossession and everything like that. they have found a way to do that with phones now to target low income consumers, where they essentially, instead of, for a while, they were selling them track phones, right? So the idea was like you get a track phone, and because you didn't have a good enough credit score to get a contract, instead, what they're now doing is essentially offering like highly expensive finance plans to people with low credit scores, and or that like don't have access to whatever kind of metrics that they would need to be successful at getting the phones. And they're getting these super long payment plans. And then when they need to upgrade the phone, they essentially just keep rolling that financing over and over and over again. My partner bought a new phone and did not trade in his old phone in case it broke. That was wild to me. I usually don't end up trading in my old phones because we end up using them for other things. Because like Aaron uses them for like live streaming or GPS tracking on rides and stuff like that. Usually the trade-in for the old phones is like not worth very much to me. I hold on to my phones for a really long time. So by the time I change the phone, it ends up like being worth like a $50 trade-in. And for me, I don't find that valuable enough. Michael says, I'm excited for this topic, but I gotta leave for a meeting. Ugh, no fun. No fun. Sorry, I went dead there for a second. I was trying to read the chat. Look, family plan means family. I can't help that I have a lot of cousins. I feel like that's kind of what it is. Apple Arcade is phone games with the microtransactions removed. Okay, that's actually pretty cool for people with kids. I could see the value in that thing. I get Paramount with my Walmart Plus account, which more than pays for itself with fuel discounts. I get Hulu free with my Spotify. It said it was an extra dollar, and then it wasn't. Wait, what? It said it was an extra dollar, but now it isn't an extra dollar? Is it more dollars, or is it just zero? Because that's very interesting. David says, who needs ESPN? Well, some of us like to watch very specific sports, and I am in the case where NBC has a chokehold, but some other people really like to watch other sports. $9 is a pretty good deal. I will also say, like, for a long time, I was getting Spotify free from my job, but it was taxable. So, like, because I worked at Starbucks and we had to play Spotify, and we'd have to play Spotify for the store, but like from approved playlists, although our store manager let us play from unapproved playlists. She doesn't work for Starbucks anymore, so it's fine. But so she let us play for like unapproved playlists sometimes. But because we needed Spotify for work, they had a deal where all Starbucks employees got Spotify for free, but the value of Spotify Premium you got taxed on. So I got taxed like $1 a month or something like that, maybe 50 cents a month. That just came out of my pay stub for the value of Spotify Premium, which was kind of annoying. I mean, it's a better deal than that. Have we talked about Rocket Money at all? I find it incredible that some people have a monthly subscription to help them manage their monthly subscriptions. Rocket Money has pitched me on sponsorships so many times, and I do find it really interesting. But I will say, on the business side, on the personal side, it's like quite easy for me to keep track of all my subscriptions because I have very few of them. But I absolutely understand it on the business side because everything is a software as a service model now. And I think I would pay just to make sure that I'm not like paying $250 for a Wall Street Journal renewal. And also, so I could see that. But they really bill it as like it's going to pay for itself because you're going to find free money. And one of the things they say is like people are paying double for subscriptions to various platforms. And I think that could be possible with the amount of people that seem to be getting these as perks with other subscriptions. So I guess, is it well done? Like, is it done where it goes, oh, you're paying for a Walmart subscription and you're paying for a Paramount subscription? Did you know that you could get free Paramount with Walmart? Like, I haven't used it because I have not taken sponsorship money from them. But yes. Oh, Heather, hi. I hope you're still here. I don't know how long ago you asked this in the chat because I didn't see it now. Any suggestions for gluten-free donuts in Portland are welcome. There is only one place I know of that makes gluten-free donuts. They are also vegan. It's called Gluten Free Gem. I don't know any other places. But they're on Broadway, like near the Lloyd District area. They're right on the streetcar, so it's good if you're visiting. But yeah, Gluten Free Gym is the only place I know, but they're all gluten and all vegan and all gluten free. And well, I don't know if all of them are vegan actually, but they definitely do have vegan gluten free donuts. Subscriptions. I have 2 Patreons, Walmart Plus, and that's all. I feel like that's pretty reasonable these days because everything is a subscription. The Patreons, for me, come out of my Patreon. So I used to support a lot of people on Patreon back when Patreon was like a bigger source of income for Oh My Dollar, and I then would pay more of it forward. So essentially they get taken out before I even get the draw to my bank. And for a while I felt okay about that, but I scaled back significantly when I stopped having the show and my Patreon revenue went down, which is like fine. I always knew that giving up the show would mean that the Patreon revenue would go down. I just try to make sure that the Patreon revenue and YouTube income is enough to pay all of the like recurring expenses and also make sure that I can keep ordering more books for the workshops that I do with youth. And like, I am fine if I never take home a single dollar from the Patreon anymore because I have a day job. Obviously, if I get laid off in public media and I need to find a way to make Oh My Dollar my full-time job again, I might feel differently about that. Thank you very much to all my Personal Finance Society members for making it possible for me to do those workshops. I'm sure I would find a way to do the workshops even if I didn't have the Patreon income, but it's really nice because the forums cost like a lot of money to host. Not like crazy, but enough money that it would be pretty significant if I didn't. And I even though I've tried to put on ads on them several times, I have not had success that have had having ads on the forum that haven't reduced the like overall vibe of the forums. Like they've just made user experience so bad. So I feel like it's a good in between where it pays all the expenses. It also pays for my Adobe, which I keep wondering. The Adobe and my email software are the 2 pieces of subscriptions that I personally pay for that I am upset about. And Adobe, I have been using Adobe for 30 years now. Probably 30 years I've been using Photoshop. And I have tried many other free things. I have tried GIMP. I have tried GNU GNU Shop. Is that what it used to be called? Now it's called GIMP. I have tried Canva. I've tried so many different things. I, at this point, use Adobe software 30 plus hours a week because I use Audition at work. I use Premiere at work. I use Photoshop for my own, for my thumbnails. I use Premiere for editing videos whenever that sometimes happens on my channel. I use a lot of Adobe typefaces because if you're paying for other Adobe, they're all in there. And so I'm okay with it, but it used to be that you would buy Photoshop on a CD and you try to get an educational discount and then you could hold on to it for like 3-4 years. And then when you decided to upgrade, you would to the next version, you would pay for it. This is also how YNAB worked for a long time. And I understand how for both YNAB and Adobe, two extremely different sized companies, it makes sense to them to, it's more sustainable for them to have like regular recurring income. But Adobe, not only can you not do recurring, every year I've tried to just pay annually so that I could like get a discount, and that's not possible. You have to pay monthly. The types, they get more and more pieces of software. So it's like everybody's describing is like, they keep offering you all these other things. And I'm like, for a long time, I just needed Photoshop. And they had a scaled down version for a while where it was like much cheaper if you just had Photoshop. And it didn't work. Okay. So there's two things that I was like thinking about because I get a work subscription to Adobe Suite. I theoretically could use it on my personal computer, but I just had a friend who's like been dealing with a former employer that he worked for like decades, who is now being like sued by his former employer because he left and started his own YouTube channel, and they're trying to like copyright strike everything he's making and essentially say that he owns their likeness. Until we have a union contract in place, I do not want to be in the situation of using a work piece of software for the work I do outside of work. In particular, because they've been very persnickety about any freelance work that I do, and I have to get it previously approved. And for a lot of people, they've taken like a significant cut of their freelance income for working for other outlets. So my thought is that it frustrates me because most of the time I do not need to use Adobe for my personal stuff. But when I do, it is going to be Adobe. And I get very upset about it because it costs $54 a month is what I am paying for Adobe now. And second to website hosting and email hosting, that is the most money that I pay. The email hosting, I think, is very reasonable for the size of the list I have. The problem is I just don't use my email list very often anymore because I don't produce a show anymore. And I really use it like 3 times a year. I use it to like announce Budgetober, which is a totally free thing that we do. And I use it to announce the like sales at the end of the year, like Small Business Saturday and all the like pre-holiday season sales. And I usually announce Snackuary on there as well. And that's like it. So it's crazy how much money I pay for it, but my list is really big because Oh My Dollar used to be a fairly big show. And so I have like over 10K people on my list. And because of that, my list costs like a ton of money. But I've run my own like mailing list before, and it is very hard to keep yourself off spam lists. It's hard to do like the automation and everything. And because of that, I don't want to move my list over to another service. I have all of these automations set up. Like when people buy books, they get like a certain, like they get like weekly check-ins, and I have all these like things from the show where if you follow a short URL, it gives you a form and you can download stuff. Oh, but I hate it. I spend so much money on it. I do pay annually for that one. So it's like a huge chunk of change, but I pay it annually. I do understand software as subs, as annoying as it is, as they're required continued development. If they're on a platform that gets updates like iOS, they need constant development. Absolutely. I totally understand it from a business perspective, which is why I'm less upset about doing it on the business side, because I like recognize that I continue to get value from this, and I make, theoretically, you know, I make money from that. Like I come out ahead every year for Oh My Dollar, even though it's not very much now that I have another job. Like I make a profit. I continue to make a profit from Oh My Dollar every year. It's not very much, but it's some amount of money so that the IRS still trusts me. But yeah. Don't all of the budgeting software have a subscription fee? Now, almost all of them do. There is 2 free budgeting softwares. Actually, I'm doing a review of this right now because I am planning on making some videos for Budgetober in October. about different budgeting softwares because we essentially end up doing it every year, but it ends up being a different time every year because I'm not very organized. But I I think it could be kind of interesting to do a like review video. There's two now. Neither of them are like particularly great. I pay annually for YNAB at least, but yeah, that's the big thing with all of these like financial softwares. It's always been that if you're not paying for the software, you're the product, right? So like with Mint, that was their model for a really long time, was the idea that you were the product. So your data was being collected and sold to consumer agencies, and that was and advertisers, and you would get call from financial advisors, blah, blah, blah. But it was free. And for a lot of people, that was valuable. That is also true of the credit checking websites, which a lot of those are still free. Most of them are offered free through your credit card companies now too. So like if you're like looking at like buying a house or a car and you need to keep an eye on your credit score for the next 6 months to a year, you should be able to get that through like Discover has it for free. Experian has this thing called Experian Boost that will like link to your checking account and report your regular transactions, even if they aren't credit transactions, to help boost your credit score. So there are free tools available for credit. And that's because, once again, they take and aggregate that data, which has always been the model of credit agencies, right? Which is why you get a bunch of prepaid credit offers in the mail. Why you have to unsubscribe from those. That has been the model of credit bureaus since they started in the 1970s. But Empower, which used to be called, oh my God, I can't even remember the old name of Empower now. What was it called? Someone else is going to remind me what it used to be called, but it's called Empower now. It is free. And it is free because JP Morgan like acquired them, and they provide like net worth tracking and everything. But once again, you are the product. So for Empower, it is like a useful dashboard. I actually think it's like a really good way for retail investors to get a breakdown of like the types of things that they're holding. If they're holding a lot of mutual funds or ETFs or index funds, it gets you a good idea of like what industries that you're in. And it has pretty decent retirement projections, which are very good if you like don't have a financial planner. But here's the thing. If you go on there and you import certain things, because one, it costs a lot of money to be connected to banks for them. But two, it is absolutely you're going to start getting calls from financial advisors, right? So they're selling your data about you to financial industry people, which is a huge, like back when I was an investment advisor representative, I would get daily like deluge of emails from different services that cost hundreds of dollars a month that offer to get me qualified leads. And those come from websites like that, right? So I used to think $300 for Adobe was expensive. True, because I would like always get the educational deal. I spend $150, and I felt like that was crazy expensive. And now I pay $54 a month. I'm so upset about it. I'm upset about the email platform too, because what it ends up being like about $1,000 a year, I think, is roughly what I pay for my email hosting platform. It goes up more based on the amount of subscribers you have, but my open rates are really high, so my list doesn't essentially need to be scrubbed. It would be easier to scrub my list down if I sent more emails, because essentially if people were like regularly not responding or opening my emails, then I would just clean it out. But since I send emails so rarely, I have like 80% open rates, which are crazy. Like 20% is like really good in most industries, but 80% is like unheard of. And because, I mean, I like to think I write good emails, but also is because I send so few. And I do kind of at this point value the fact that people trust that they're not going to get a lot of emails from me, so they stay on the list for years at a time. I think my like average subscriber age on that list is like 5 or 6 years, which is also a very long time for like a podcast email list. So I don't know who you use, but my father-in-law runs a company called Tailored Mail for mailing lists. I use ConvertKit, which is now Kit. It's fine. Here's the thing. I'm already on it. And whenever you move your email list, there's this whole like verification process and everything that you need to go through. And I do maintain that ConvertKit is an extremely good tool if I wanted to go back to Oh My Dollar being a revenue source, which sometimes I do. I like really miss doing the podcast about personal finance, and I do miss some of that security that I got from having a bunch of different sources of revenue and kind of like always balancing it. But I do really like my job, and realistically, at any moment in time, my job could disappear. So, Rural says, I get emails from you all the time, Lily. Is that Patreon? It is Patreon. You can also adjust your settings if you want to, but I send 2 or 3 emails a week through Patreon, but they're mainly just to let people know about these live streams. Also, I have never done a poll of what people want on, like, as far as, like, email settings on Patreon, and I think it might be kind of fascinating to do that. Rural, you're probably on my regular email list, too, but you just get it so rarely. Sky says, how wild is it that capitalism really goes, oh, you need a car or a phone and you have bad credit score. Oh, we're definitely going to take advantage of this and make the situation worse. Absolutely. It's like, I mean, the banking industry and the things that banking is allowed to do in this country are, this is the kinds of things that are regulatorily allowed in the United States with regards to the banking sector are not seen in most other developed countries. Some exceptions to that are I'm trying to think of a way to say this carefully because I don't want to, in broad strokes, say America versus the rest of the world. But we have such a complex, segmented, and in many ways unregulated amount of freely flowing available debt in the United States that we have created 99 ways to screw over low-income people because of the expectation that everything will be financed. And I guess I'm going to stop myself here because I am actually giving a talk to a bunch of college students tomorrow, art college students. So real smart, but maybe are told by society that they won't be good at money. I'm giving a presentation to them tomorrow, and they have specifically asked that we talk a lot about credit. So I'm trying not to scare them away from the credit system because especially if they are going into careers as working artists, having a good credit score is going to open up a lot of options for them. But they have to be like 10 times more. And why it's going to open up more options for them is because art jobs are a great example of something where you're often likely going to be your own boss, or you might have to move for work, right? Like if you work in the commercial art industry, quite often those jobs are limited to a couple cities. When you're young, a good credit score provides you with extra tools in tight housing markets. It provides you with some freedom and flexibility when you have unstable income, which is like very common for working artists. And I don't want to scare them away, but I do want them to be extremely aware of the pitfalls that they can get into. Sky says, I hope it's Willamette PNCA. Honestly, I could have used a good scaring during art school. However, I'm grateful for the experience. It is not. I taught? I feel like I taught once at PNCA. They haven't invited me back, but I think it's because they didn't have a budget. I usually don't speak at like regular colleges for free. I teach at like foster and youth agencies for free, but colleges I always try to charge them a little bit. The one exception to this gets to be my alma mater, Reed, because they have paid me before, but I do it as my volunteer alumni service to them, and then they don't get to ask me for too much money every year. That's my stance on that. No, it's Savannah College of Art and Design tomorrow. So David says, who couldn't lose their job at any time through no fault of their own? Well, people in France. People in Germany get a lot more notification. There's a lot of countries in which there are significantly more worker rights as far as notifications when you are hired as an employee. That is also true in Japan. That's also true in Korea. If you work in certain types of jobs, it can be very hard to fire you or make you redundant, at least without ample warning. Because we do not have a contract yet for our union, there is no requirements that they do anything, that they give us any level of notification or severance. We do not have any statewide statutes or federal statutes. So pretty much, and we don't have any employees in California, which is a place where they would probably have to give some notification. We have over 200 employees, but just barely. So we're in the smaller camp. Anyway, I mean, yes, lots of people can lose their jobs, as we are seeing, and it's like rough out there right now. And we've particularly seen it in tech. I will say that journalism, and in particular public media, which just had the Corporation for Public Broadcasting shut down last week, and we lost 9% of our funding, and many stations have lost 60 to 80% of their funding from the federal government that was already promised, like it was already allocated funding that was taken back, which is crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Feels a little more unstable. We keep hiring C-level executives though, so. Everywhere I went in Savannah was SCAD. SCAD is super expensive. It's also very small. I didn't realize that. Well, I will also say that, so I know someone who got into there and couldn't afford to go. And I think they even got like a scholarship. This is back in the like early 2000s, late 90s. They're a very talented artist, self-taught, but they're now going to college, and they're like 50s. I think they're 50 now. So, but the, what was I going to say about SCAD? Here's the thing with a lot of these things, with a lot of these private colleges, is that the sticker price does not equal what students actually pay. And so like my college was crazy expensive, but they agreed to meet 100% of your financial need. And so, you know, I know SCAD has a huge sequential arts program. Most of the people I know that went to SCAD, my ex went to SCAD and was $150K in debt for what is basically a comic art degree. I know, and I feel like the Vermont College of Comics, or whatever it's called, is like, was much more affordable, but I feel like even that isn't that affordable anymore now. Everyone I know that's been to the Vermont College for Comics, I think it has a slightly different name, but they've always been fellows, so they were getting paid to be there. But I've known like 3 people that have been fellows there. The Center for Cartoon Studies, that's the one in Vermont. But it's very similar to the sequential art ones, but was a lot more affordable. Likewise, on the scholarship and attending, they make it hard to attend even with one. But you know, U.S. colleges. Yeah, I for my friend, one of the things was just that like they didn't know anything about this. Like they didn't have anyone around them that could give them information. They didn't know anybody that had gone to college, and so they just didn't have any idea of like what financial aid or scholarships or loans or any of it that was about, nor did they have anybody that could like ever co-sign, which I think is a case for a lot of people, but especially first generation college students. I ended up going through with one of the Empower Financial Advisor pitches and turned them down, and man, they were surprised and not pleased about it. Oh, that's really interesting. Rural says, I need the live stream reminders. Okay, great. I also could like tone down the live stream reminders. I usually do one on Sunday. So like the live streams on Tuesday, I do one 3 days before, and then I do one on the day of, 2 or 3 days before. And then if I'm really lazy, it's the day before. But I never send like 5 I always send just one, but it might not be 3 days before, depending on how things go. And then I do one like 10 minutes before we're live. I don't know. It felt like a good pace to me, but I'm always willing to readjust it. It's interesting because they include very little exposure to the actual industry. Well, I feel like that was always one of the really interesting things about SCAD to me, too, is because like so much of the industry is not in Savannah. And so it's surprising to me that that is in the way. I went to a mostly art college and it was so expensive. They are now out of business after like 200 years. I think it's getting more and more common with a lot of arts colleges. Well, and if you went to the Art Institutes, which is like a for-profit arts colleges, they're all over. There's Art Institute of blah, 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 Art Institute, blah, blah, blah. A lot of them went out of business, but also if you took out student loans for art institutes, you may be entitled to borrower's defense and actually get the debt forgiven. This was a Biden era thing. I hope most of the people that qualified for it were alerted because they tried to do like really good data dives to like make sure that everybody knew that they qualified for it. But essentially because the cost of the college was not, it was false advertising, essentially, is what the borrower's defense is on. And in particular, most of the colleges where that was true were private for-profit colleges like Art Institute, ITT Tech, Concordia, or not Concordia, sorry. Now they're called Concordia. What were they called before? No, it was Concordia College. There's a bunch of them. There's like a whole list. There's like 200. But a lot of them are like dental hygienist schools or art schools, those sort of fee-based schools. Eric says, email verification, man, what a pain. DMark, Daychem, SBF, we have to do that at work for third-party folks who need to send from outside to inside the company. It's so hard, and like even running like a mailman server, which is, I think they do a very good job of packaging. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't. It's just like a full-time job staying off the spam list. Y'all, I'm supposed to be in this meeting in 10 minutes, and you all have made me late, and I haven't even told you the running shoe story yet. I don't know how good of the story it is, and if you get the Patreon emails, you probably already heard it. But we're going to do the donut while I tell you the running school story. So. This is the donut. Look how beautiful this is. Okay, so it is a blueberry coffee cake, and it has the coffee cake crumble on it. It has a vanilla, like, pastry filling, and you can kind of see it's, like, doughy. It, like, fights back. Fresh blueberries there, and it's filled. It's a filled raised donut. It's so dense. This is a very heavy donut. Is it back while I was mid donut munch? I kept eating it. It's very good. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, mainly because I really like this like pastry. It tastes like the cookie dough batter that you're not supposed to eat before it goes into the oven, but it's vegan, so it's okay. It doesn't have any egg in it. So I'm going to say 4 out of 5. We have to do this donut log. By the way, this is 100% Aaron's fault. But he also fixed it, so I think that's a fair trade-off. Do you all want to see my new office, by the way? Because it looks amazing. The wallpaper is finally up. I don't know if people remember, but I bought this very expensive wallpaper like almost 2 years ago. There we go, 4 out of 5. We're in a fresh donut. Okay. I do need to go to my meeting in 5 minutes. So start writing what you're looking forward to this week in the chat while I tell you what inspired me to talk about junk fees and subscriptions. By the way, I have no actual feedback on how to avoid this, prepare for this, other than be aware of what you're paying. I actually had a whole nother thing about the amount of fees that are happening in higher ed right now. Sometimes they're ended up paying fees that are like equal to or more than their tuition these days. And that is because, especially at state colleges, tuition will sometimes be limited by the state constitution or the state legislature, but then the fees won't. So then they'll just tack on all of these crazy junk fees. One of my favorite one was one called the free HIV anonymous testing fee, which free was in the name of the fee that you paid. And I just had to think, should that really be a fee that you should be required to pay? And also if it's supposedly free testing. I actually want to know the story behind that one, but we'll never do. Okay, so this is a story. I needed to get running shoes, as I talked about last week. My feet are insanely hard to fit because they are very wide at the front and very narrow at the back. And I have hammer toes. And also, if I was going to buy new shoes, I wanted them to be cute because I am used to my Goodwill $8.99 shoes. But because I was having a little bit of, like, my shoes were quite worn out, I decided, I actually sat down and like added it up, and I think I had put 1,400 miles on those shoes. So that's really a lot of miles of running in these shoes. So anyway, I went back and forth. I ended up deciding that I would maybe get a used pair of this super small shoes for travel, and instead I would focus on a pair of shoes that makes the most sense for me. So I went to all of these running stores, and they all now have like different VIP memberships. One of the stores that I went to is like a nationally franchised chain. I think it's called Roadrunner. And it was like the closest to, and I went there because they had one of the shoes that I was thinking about, both of the shoes that I was thinking about in stock in the sizes that I wanted to look at. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this store, and it's in an area of town where, this is Portland, remember? So there's like 10 different running stores within like a 3-mile radius. So I was like, okay, I'll be able to go to one of the other stores if this store doesn't work out. And it was like being in a used car lot. I have to tell you, from like the moment they were doing like running gait analysis on me, and I tried to decline it. And then they kept trying to upsell me on these insoles. And I was like, I don't want insoles. I'm not going to get insoles from you guys. And they're like, well, no pressure. We're just going to mold them to your feet. I walked in and I was like, I want to see this size and this size of this brand and model of shoes. And they were like, well, we have to put you on this machine, and then you get 4 different recommended ones. And I let it was like a 23-year-old helping me. He was very cute and friendly, but he was like absolutely had to be going through this like whole thing. And then they were trying to sell me on a VIP membership. And I was like, well, I'm not going to buy these guys. So, I was like, I'm not going to rush and buy anything right now. But the 4 recommended shoes weren't even the shoes that I wanted brought out. And one of them I never even got to try on because he kept just being like, oh, well, we don't have that, so I'm bringing you this other one. And it's because they have like deals with certain brands that they want to push on you. He kept trying to push these insoles and like insert them in the shoes. And I was like, I am not going to spend $130 on these insoles, which I could only find out the price of the insoles like when I asked him because nothing had prices on it in the store. It was so frustrating. And then I was like, hey, I'm just going to buy a pair of socks for now. I'm going to write down these models. I'm going to think it over because I was like, they didn't have the color that I wanted there. And so I was starting to be like, I don't even think I want to shop at this place, but I didn't want to make this kid that had done all this work. I didn't really want to get him dinged. So I was like, I'll buy a pair of like running socks. And the initial pair of running socks they tried to check me out with were $50. And they tried to sign me up for a $4.99 trial for their VIP membership, which they then said when I came back to get the shoes would get me $10 off the shoes. And I was like, so it's a $5 discount on the shoes. But then that converts into like a $15 a year VIP membership. And they are not the only store that does that. Runningwarehouse.com, which is one that everybody recommended for getting shoes because they let you try them for like 90 days. You have to have a VIP membership to do that. And that gets you like 2 days. And then a couple of the local places also had their own like VIP memberships. And all of the prices, anyway, after I left there, I was like, man, that was like weirdly, they were trying every sales tactic, like trying to get you to like, believe that, to feel invested by like getting the insoles done ahead of time. They were doing this like faux scientific gait analysis. I was like, you are clearly not like qualified to be doing a gait analysis of me from a camera on the back of like a treadmill. Anyway, there was just a lot of like pseudoscience going on there, blah, 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 like pushing certain brands on you because they have deals with those brands. And I was like, I'm not going to be buying from these places anyway. But then one of the problems I was running into was that like this is like pervasive in the running industry. And in the end, the place that I ended up being able to find the shoes that I wanted in the size that I wanted was Zappos, which I had to then link with my Amazon Prime membership. And then I had to sign up for a free but VIP membership in order to get the fast shipping and the easy returns. So I've now like signed up to like 20 places email lists. And I just felt like this was there should be no subscription involved. I am buying at most 1 pair of running shoes a year. And that's probably, knowing me, it's going to be 1 pair every 8 years. But I'm going to buy 1 pair of running shoes a year. Maybe like high-level runners, high-level amateur runners are buying 2 or 3 pairs a year. Like if they're high mileage. But like, absolutely, I do not need a membership to the running place. And for local stores that do a lot of like group runs, I could see like wanting to put you on the email list or whatever. The big reason they're all doing this is they're all trying to compete with the major juggernauts, the Amazons of the world. And they need to have like, they have to be able to offer competitive services. But I was just so upset about the fact that these junk fees and this pervasiveness is like everywhere. And when I was deciding if I was going to go back and like get these shoes from that store, because I did feel like, this kid had invested like 25 minutes in time, like going and fetching all of these shoes, blah, 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 blah for me. So I was like, oh, I kind of want him to get the commission if I can. And it is a locally franchise store, so that, money is somewhat staying in the local economy, but it's like this national chain. And I looked up online, and apparently they're constantly getting signed up for, by the way, I didn't buy the $50 pair of shoes, or pair of socks. I did not buy them. But there was like no price transparency on anything. It was just very frustrating. And apparently they will sign people up for the trial subscription, and then you'll just start getting billed for this like annual membership at this place. So very frustrating. Hard sells will just make me say no out of spite as a reflex. Well, that was what was really interesting. It was not a hard sell, but it was like all of those other selling tactics that they were doing. So, you know, he was anyway, it was just very frustrating. Stores that don't have prices always sound sus to me. Well, so what was frustrating was that the shoe models on the wall all had prices, but they were like deep inside. But because of their model of like this like super high touch, you need to come to this area and you need to get fit, blah, 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 blah. They were getting everything for you. So you weren't even like interacting with the shoes on the shelf. And that part was like, it's, yeah, a classic sort of thing. Roadrunner's been around for a long time. Yeah, it's been around for a long time. 50s kid used to have their feet x-rayed in the shoe store. Interesting. I didn't realize that long. Yes, okay, it was 3 pairs of running socks, but I was like, I want to get one of those pairs of running socks because they like had me in a pair of socks when I was trying these out. I was like, oh, these are really comfortable. And I also felt like I should buy something after which is obviously a selling tactic, is that you feel this like obligation to someone, so you want to buy something. But Zappos, but this was a thing that I was like, if I'm going to do, because inherently like running shoes are not the kind of like purchase. There's a lot of things in the downstream supply chain that I don't really support, right? Like it can get they have really bad environmental practices. You're usually giving money to a really large corporation. Often it is unclear if there is forced or child labor somewhere in that supply chain. And so like, I was like, if I am going to spend money on new shoes, I would like it at least to be in a local company, especially because we have so many local running stores here and they like give back to the community, right? They like host group runs every, like multiple times a week and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, oh, if at the very least I want to do that. So I didn't want to go to Zappos and I certainly didn't want to go to Amazon. And in the end, I went to Zappos, which I think is Amazon now. So much for brick and mortar. It's now been shitified for shoes. That's what's so frustrating is I felt like it's one of the last things, like fabrics and shoes are one of those things where I'm like, I really do want to try it in person because my feet are so hard to fit. It is just, and shoes are so like bulky and frustrating and expensive. And so the sending back and forth to find something that fits properly is very frustrating. And then like fabric, you want to touch it, and getting samples is very frustrating. But both of those have been made crap now, right? Like, and one of them is from private equity because that's what brought down Joann's Fabrics. And Amazon brought down a lot of the like local fabric stores because people stopped buying the really high margin notions and stuff that they would get at like your local fabric store. So, and they wouldn't buy their sewing machines, which also come with like high margins as well for these local stores. And they started buying them online. And then it didn't make any sense. Amazon bought Zappos years ago and I think still owns it. I mean, I had to connect my Amazon Prime account to it and then I also had to sign up for VIP. It's very frustrating. Okay. I'm already 5 minutes late to my next meeting. So what people are looking forward to, I am looking forward to next week showing you my amazing new office. If you're on the Oh My Dollar forums, you can go check it out. Oh, that is not the forum banner. That's the support banner. These buttons need some work. Aaron, really, we need to sit down and come up with better plans for this. To be fair, Aaron asked what needed to change, and I couldn't remember at the time. So, but if you go to forum.ohmydollar.com, you can see pictures on my journal if you want to see it, but it looks amazing. I have like the cool desk in there. Now I need to pick outlet covers, and of course the ones I like are $30 a piece, which is not unreasonable until you have like 8 of them and then it starts to become unreasonable. So we got to come up with a new plan for those outlet covers. But it's going to look amazing. Once the chandelier is in, it's absolutely gorgeous. Okay. I I look forward to receiving this Buffy t-shirt I bought from Hot Topic during this stream for $15 on sale. You know what? Sometimes you always need a little bit of happiness that's waiting for you in an inbox, in your mailbox coming. This is why you always, if you just buy one small online purchase every week, you'll always have something to look forward to. This is really bad financial advice, but you know, I feel like this is what got us, a lot of us, through the early pandemic. K-pop Demon Hunters sing-along this weekend. I haven't seen K-pop Demon Hunters, but since I skate with a lot of people in the age range of 16 to 13, or 6 to 13, I seem to be hearing a lot of K-pop Demon Hunters. Speaking of subscriptions, what streaming platform is that on? Going to hang with my uncle and take him to see my grandparents in the cemetery and fix up their place there, and hope my parents can return there soon from New York City. Oh, that sounds really sweet. That sounds great. Okay, Winter is headed to puppy class with Ajax, which sounds like it could be terrible or wonderful. David says, I haven't been able to buy shoes in person for years. I think that's surprising to me because you live in a big city and I feel like you should be able to buy them in person, but I don't have, my feet are just really wide. My follow-up complaint about this, which is like a slightly smaller complaint than how like the overall shitification of buying shoes now, but my smaller complaint is that all these running companies make cool colorways of the shoes, but then they are not available if you need wide, which I do. So, I am streaming live next week from the new office. I don't think so. I'll probably be streaming from here because Aaron's going to be out of town, and I would imagine I would need tech support to do that. But we did talk about moving this pole in there. We're like getting close. We need the glass to go in one of the internal windows. It's already cut, but it needs to be installed. I don't know by who before we do that. Oh, it's on Netflix. Well, I don't pay for Netflix, so I'll have to wait till the new season of Bridgerton comes out and I re-up my Netflix, and then I will be willing to entertain it. Someone talked to me about how Soda Pop is about eating souls, and I couldn't believe I hadn't noticed that. So Fuzzbubble says occupancy soon. Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. None of us know. Someday we will live. I don't know. I just noticed that the chat isn't actually like popping up anymore. You know, I'm doing my best. All right, y'all. What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to showing you my new office. It's either going to be pictures or I could live stream from the office next week if some miracle happens. Y'all, it's been lovely to have you here. Thank you for bearing with me with the new technical issues. Until next week, stay safe, stay hydrated, pet a cat if you have one available, and I will see you all soon. Bye.